Hello and welcome to another episode of Meet the Neighborhood. Today I'm here with Andrew Brobyn, an author who's local to Swansea. He's written a book called Babble On, a drug memoir. It's his own story. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you.
Would you mind giving us a synopsis of the book?
Sure. It's a memoir, so it is largely based on true events because it deals so much with mental health issues and illicit dealings in the kind of the criminal world. I've used creative nonfiction to delineate what happens and what is kind of read into a new reality as you're going through the book. So not everything is exactly as portrayed. I've kind of exacerbated certain things, I've minimized certain things, but by and large, it's a true story. And it just kind of charts my life in broad strokes, but it deals a lot with mental health issues. While I was kind of in late high school, early university, and then beyond that even, I was involved in the illegal drugs trade. At one point, I was fairly prominent, moving a fair amount of material. I ended up getting arrested, spending a very short period in Maplehurst solitary, which was not a pleasant experience, not recommended to go to the Milton Hilton. But I do not have a criminal record, thank the Lords. And now I work in the cannabis industry, which is actually how I managed to get the book deal. I was serving someone who had come into the store. Sorry, I've got my cat here who's just kind of bugging me for affection. I'm not sure how that'll go down, but he's very, very cuddly and he won't leave me alone. So
That's okay.
I have to deal with this guy first. He's the priority. Yeah, so I was dealing with this customer at my store, and at the end of the transaction, I asked for her name, and she says it. So I asked for like, wait, your name plus your last name. I don't want to out her. And she goes, yeah, that's me. How do you know who I am? So I say, I'm Andrew. Who? Andrew, and I pull down my mask. I'm Andrew Brobyn. Oh, I recognize you. She had met me a few times at different literary events, and I was by no means like an author's author. Like I hadn't done anything big. I hadn't been published in any notable magazines. I'd had a poetry mentor of sorts, and I'd been to a bunch of events and kind of being the unwelcome crazy guy in the corner at a bunch of stuff. So she'd met me in that context and asked me what I was doing, which in writer's talk is, what are you working on? And I told her I've got a book of poetry that I'm shopping around. I've got a bunch of comics that I would like to turn into a comic book. And I'm working on kind of this weird creative nonfiction memoir type thing. And it's only like, whatever it was, like 50 pages long or so. And yeah, so I summed up what I was doing, and she said, oh, I just so happen to be the new like nonfiction editor at Dunder Press. Why don't you send me your manuscript? I was like, well, it's not done. And she's like, it doesn't matter, just send it in. Nonfiction doesn't have to be completed when you send it in. It's kind of, you send in a synopsis of what you're doing, and they allow you a certain amount of time to finish it. So yeah, I was like, I don't want to do the submissions process. I've been turned down so many times because this book is fairly difficult. It's divisive. A lot of people said that they didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole, but she was willing to accept it. So I did submit it, skipped a few hoops that a lot of people would have to normally submit by, but I managed to get it in, and I got a call December 23rd, a few weeks later, and she said, I read it, I presented it to the Dunder team, and I don't want to say this too early, but it looks like you're getting a book deal. I don't know, because there's poetry involved. She was like, I don't know if we can include the poetry because we don't publish poetry, and it's just kind of like not in our purview. But it looks like you're getting a book deal. So from there, like my hopes just shot right up. I was elated as all hell. And over the course of the next few weeks and months, I signed the deal. It turned out that I could keep the poetry in. I managed to keep the book pretty much exactly as I wanted, and I expanded from there. I took it from 50 pages to now I think it's like 384 pages all in or something. So it was a long year of writing. It deals with all sorts of stuff. Some people call it like a trip report. Some people call it a love story. I've gotten some endorsements that compare it to like very out there writing from the early 20th century. A writer called Henry Miller, who was actually banned. All of his books were banned in the United States during the 1960s. So I'm kind of apprehensive about how the book is accepted, but someone has taken a chance on me, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that pans out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what a story. What a whirlwind for you.
Yeah, right. A little bit of a long rant, but
Oh,
yeah.
I love it. I love the story. Now, because this is by and large nonfiction, and it's also set locally. I mean, you grew up in Swansea, or at least lived here for a portion of your young life.
Yeah.
How did you feel, or how did it feel to be able to write this story set in your own backyard?
Ooh, well, I know this neighborhood so well. So a lot of it like was written while I was actively around here. And then some of it, well, a lot of it was written like after the fact while I was writing back. In the year that they gave me to kind of expand the book, I had to go back in time and rewrite a lot of it. But because my memories of this neighborhood are so enshrined in who I am, they came came back a lot easier to me than my time at university or my time elsewhere, right? So I
Interesting.
can describe the clearing that I was in High Park in much more detail than I could the parking lot that I was in the town that I went to university in.
Yeah.
And I have kind of a much more sentimental attachment to this area. And I think that does leak out a little bit in the book. I can't say too much because I'm reading it from the author's perspective, but you'll have to tell me.
Yes, I can. I mean, I can't wait to read it. I'm absolutely, maybe I'll be one of the first.
Yeah.
Um, and have you had any early reviews come in? You mentioned some are saying that the book is a bit divisive,
Yep.
but obviously a major publisher is taking it on,
Yeah.
so who's read it at this point, and what kind of feedback are you getting?
So I sent it out to I think 7 or so authors, and then my publicist sent it out to another author who she thought might be interested in it. Two of the very first two people who got back to me both said no, that it was far too divisive, that they didn't want to touch it, they didn't want their name associated with it. They said best of luck. It's come a long way since the last time they saw it, but one of them was like, my dean, like he's a university professor, he's like, my dean would be all over me if this ever got out. I can't be associated with this. And then the next few were all very positive. So I'm not sure if I should name names or what, but I'm sure they would be fine with it. So one of the first person who endorsed me was Julie Crawford, who wrote, sorry, Julie Cameron, who wrote Lady Crawford. She's a poet. All of the people who've endorsed me have been poets,
Oh,
except
no.
for Andrew Kaufman, who is like a magical realism sort of writer. He's a fiction writer. So I've also had my friend, I don't want to mess up his Iranian name because he's very close to it, but I'm going to try and pronounce it, and I hope that he doesn't kill me. Hashaya Mohammadi, but I know him as Kramer, and I think a lot of people in the writing world know him as Kess. My buddy Evan J. Hoskin, as I mentioned, Andrew Kaufman, and then Susan Musgrave is a writer who she lives out in Victoria. She's had 25 plus books to her name.
Yeah.
She's fairly well regarded, and she has endorsed me kind of on blind sight. I'd never seen her before. I've never met her before. And one of the authors who denied me suggested that I reach out to her because my story might connect a little bit with her. So she just read it. I told her that it has a happy ending, and she had had a family tragedy recently involving drugs. So she decided to skip the first half and read it from the back, like from the last chapter to the middle, and then from the front to the middle. And then she ended up reading it kind of front to back, back to front, and middle to back and front. And
Okay.
she said that it works that way. And that's the first time that she'd ever read a book that way, which I think in itself was really interesting feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I hope I'm not missing anyone. I think I mentioned my friend Evan J. Hoskin. And the last person that I just got an endorsement from a few days ago is Jacob Shire, who is actually a Governor General's Award winner. So that would be huge if his name actually got on the cover. That's kind of Governor General's Award winner. Like, no one actually looks at the name or the title of the book that they wrote or anything. A lot of people are just kind of drawn to the shiny titles. So all of the reviews
Very
are really,
excited. That's
they're really
amazing.
positive. Very flowery language, as you would expect from a writer for an endorsement. But yeah, I'm curious to see what the publisher distills out of their multiple paragraphs, and curious to see who makes it on the cover, who makes it to the like publicity information, and where it goes from there.
Yeah, amazing. Now, I mean, it's pretty clear, even from a superficial conversation about the book, that this happened during what must have been a really difficult time in your life, from a legal perspective and also from a mental health perspective. How are you doing now?
Now I'm doing really well, actually. I'm working full time, so 40 hours a week. I managed to coerce my worker or my boss into giving me a 4-day work week of 10 hours a day, just because they like me so much at the pot shop that I work at. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I've been doing it since I was 12, right? So I have the inside knowledge that a lot of kids just don't have who are coming into the industry. And I'm looking for other stuff to go on from here. So I'm looking at marketing work, content creation, sort of creative professional work within the cannabis industry. I've decided and had to take up exercising quite a bit. So I've managed to lose about 70 pounds in the last few years,
Wow.
which in itself has contributed massively to my mental health. My psychiatrist says that I'm in technical remission from my bipolar disorder at the moment. I haven't had any episodes in a couple of years. And living in the right place, swimming almost every day, eating healthy, writing a second book right now, in anticipation of when this book comes out. I've got something happening in my life that I am charting the progress of. And lots of hope.
Lots of hope. Yeah, that's wonderful.
Lots of terror about this book coming out as well, as you might be able to
Yeah,
tell from
I'm sure.
how strange it might be. But I'm excited. I'm curious to see what people have to say, at least.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm very excited to read it. Now, since you know Swansea as well as anyone, are you willing to share what might be your favorite things about the area?
Ooh, most of them revolve around just being in High Park.
Mm.
Like, honestly, High Park is the beating center, the beating heart of like Roncesvalles, High Park Village, Bloor West, Swansea. Like, even coming down to the lakeshore, I feel like it's just drawn up northwards to High Park. And it's
Yeah.
not just the cherry blossom season either. Like, I was out for a bike ride with my dad earlier on this morning, and we were talking about how many people we get in High Park during cherry blossom season, and how they don't really stick around for the rest of the summer. They're there, and it's ephemeral. They're there for 2 weeks or so, and then they're gone. Whereas the rest of us who live in the neighborhood, we get to experience the park day in and day out.
Mhm.
And it breathes air literally into the entire neighborhood.
Yes.
And that's kind of my special spot. And there is a period, or there are a few points in the book where I mention High Park specifically, whether it's in context of me walking my dog, who plays a large focus, or a very terrifying experience that I have right at the end of the book in High Park, where I actually go into Grenadier Pond and have a near-death experience. So all of it is kind of tied into this. Yeah.
Right.
It's my little escape.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's wonderful. You're right. Actually, I hadn't thought about it before as being the connector among a bunch of neighborhoods. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a vacuum
Lucky.
of no buildings whatsoever, but it gives life to everything around it. And
Everything.
you don't often go from one side all the way across to the other side to the other like town, but it keeps each little neighborhood secular and insular. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah. And when will people have an opportunity to read the book, to get the book?
So it publishes officially on August 16th. You can pre-order it now on Chapters, or ideally, if you can find like a small bookseller, an independent bookseller, and ask them to pre-order it for you. That's kind of the best way for not just like the industry of independent booksellers, but it's just good karma, good vibes. But if you're so entitled, then you can go to Chapters and order it there, pre-order either the ebook or the paperback version. You can also get it from Amazon if you're feeling just want it super simple. Amazon next day delivery. I'm sure you'll be able to read it by August 6th, 17th. But it should be hitting bookstores in late August, I think. I'm not entirely sure how that process works, but I know August 16th is the date.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah,
I'll be looking for it at our Book City that's right on at Bloor and Windermere there.
Yeah. Well, I've been going around. I printed off a flyer that they sent me, like Dunder and Press kind of, they do publicity stuff for you, and then they'll send you a flyer and you print it off, and then you visit a bunch of bookstores in your neighborhood and you introduce yourself and you say, hey, I'm Andrew Brobyn. I'd be happy to do some book signings, so on and so forth. So I've been doing that around the neighborhood. I did the West End 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to go do the East End later on today. And it's good to just get out and get involved and get a job.
Awesome, Andrew. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you. Thank you for talking to me. This is my first interview.
Yay, I'm honored. Have a great day.
Have a good one.